There is one basic truth that very few people understand, yet it controls their success more than they imagine. Throughout my career, I have seen this pattern again and again in entrepreneurs, leaders, and everyday people who want to improve their lives. This is not a theory, it is a proven reality. The way you manage your mental energy decides how far you can go. I have seen people with great talent, intelligence, and ability remain stuck for years, not because they did not know what to do, but because they constantly lost their focus. They believed that talking about their ideas meant progress, when in fact it weakened them. Every unnecessary word drained a part of their inner motivation. Most people do not fail because they lack opportunities. They fail because they lack mental discipline. They talk about their plans too early. They share them while they are still fragile. They expose them to opinions that add no real value. Without realizing it, they allow outside doubts to poison a decision that should have been strengthened in silence. When you share a goal too soon, your brain feels like part of the work is already done. This creates temporary satisfaction and reduces the urgency to act. I learned that real commitment is not announced, it is executed. Silent action is always more powerful than spoken promises. Another danger of talking too much is loss of focus. Every opinion opens a new doubt, a new direction, or a new distraction. Instead of moving forward with clarity, you start explaining, defending, and justifying ideas that are not ready to be discussed. This drains your emotional energy. The problem is not what you want to achieve. The problem is the energy you lose by talking about it. That energy should be used to think clearly, work with focus, and act with discipline. Instead, it disappears in conversations that produce no results. Truly successful people protect their plans, not because they distrust others, but because they respect their own process. They understand that every goal needs a period of silence to grow stronger and take real shape. When you learn strategic silence, something changes inside you. Your focus becomes stronger. Your commitment becomes deeper. Your determination becomes stable. And that is when progress stops being an intention and starts becoming real results. Every time you reveal your goals, you invite criticism, doubt, interference, and expectations you never asked for. I have seen this countless times. Well-meaning people start to comment, question, or project their own fears onto plans that are not even theirs. You may think their words do not affect you, but your mind processes them. At first, the comments seem harmless. A suggestion here, a warning there, advice disguised as concern. But slowly, they create mental noise. Clarity fades, conviction weakens. Not because the plan was wrong, but because it was shared too early. Mental energy is limited. Each day, you have a fixed amount of focus, willpower, and clarity. When that energy is wasted on unnecessary conversations, it is no longer available for what truly matters: disciplined and consistent action. Every explanation, every justification, and every defense of your goals consumes mental strength. Instead of moving forward, you spend your energy trying to convince others. That is a costly mistake. Progress does not need approval, it needs execution. The people who move fastest are not always the smartest or the most talkative. They are the most reserved. They understand that well-used silence multiplies focus. While others talk, they work. While others give opinions, they build. I have proven that silence creates a powerful psychological advantage. It allows you to think more clearly, make better decisions, and protect your motivation. When no one gives opinions, no one interferes. And when there is no interference, you move forward with greater confidence. Understanding this completely changes how you relate to your goals. You no longer feel the need to explain them or defend them. You learn to protect them like something valuable, because they are. Your goals represent your future. That is why I say with full certainty, silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is emotional intelligence and mental discipline. When you keep your goals private, you protect your energy. And when you protect your energy, you move faster towards success. The more you talk, the more vulnerable you become. I learned this by observing repeated patterns in people from all levels. Every unnecessary word exposes your inner process to external influences you cannot control. Not everyone who listens wants what is best for you, and not every opinion brings clarity. The more you protect your process, the more power you build. This power is not external. It is internal. It is the strength that grows when you act without explanations, move without seeking approval, and trust your discipline more than outside validation. I have seen brilliant people weaken emotionally because they talked too much. They shared ideas that were still immature, received mixed opinions, and began to doubt themselves. Not because the goal was wrong, but because it was exposed before it became strong. If lately you feel tired, confused, or unmotivated, do not ignore it. These feelings are often signs of mental exhaustion. Many times they do not come from hard work, but from too much noise, unnecessary opinions, and conversations that drain your energy. Ask yourself this question honestly. How many people have you told things that were not ready to be shared? Every time you speak too soon, you lose focus. Every time you explain too much, you reduce your inner drive. The problem is that talking creates the illusion of progress. Speaking makes you feel like you are moving forward, when in reality you are only releasing emotional tension. Real progress is not comfortable. It is built in silence, with consistent effort. I learned that too many words are a silent enemy of progress. You do not notice it immediately, but it works slowly. It drains motivation, weakens conviction, and scatters attention. It is invisible because it disguises itself as social interaction. When you learn to talk less and act more, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes clear, your energy concentrates, and your progress accelerates. Strategic silence does not isolate you, it strengthens you, and from that strength, progress becomes inevitable. For years, I confirmed one key lesson. Plans do not fail because they are impossible. They fail because they are announced too early. I saw this working with thousands of people who had great ideas and real potential, but stopped before they truly began. It was not a lack of ability. It was poor management of mental focus. When you talk about what you are going to do, you release internal tension that should push you into action. That tension is necessary. It is the invisible engine behind disciplined action. When you put it into words, your mind feels a false sense of progress. Commitment stops being deep and internal and becomes social and light. You move from being responsible to yourself to feeling comfortable just because you said it. And that comfort is dangerous for any serious goal. Turning a goal into a conversation weakens it. Words replace action, and the brain confuses talking with moving forward. That is why so many people feel busy but are not progressing. True discipline is not built in public. It is built in private moments, when no one is watching and no one is applauding. That is where mental strength is formed and where long-term results are secured. Discipline does not grow by saying, "I will do it." It grows by making small daily progress, even when no one knows you are working. This quiet consistency builds an identity of trust with yourself. The most effective people do not announce their moves. They act first and speak later when results already exist. That sequence protects motivation and strengthens character. When you learn to work in silence, your level of commitment rises. You no longer depend on promises or words. You depend on real action. And it is in that silence that plans stop being intentions and start becoming achievements. There is extraordinary power in quiet work. I have seen it in people who achieved outstanding results without noise, without attention, and without seeking validation. They moved step by step, focused on the process, while others only talked about what they would do someday. Moving forward without announcing it is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. When you do not explain your moves, you preserve mental and emotional energy. Every action becomes more intentional, more precise, and more aligned with your main goal. Improving without asking for approval is a sign of inner strength. Those who need constant approval often depend emotionally on others. But those who work in silence develop deep confidence that does not change with outside opinions. Growing without explanations frees your mind. You stop justifying your effort and start executing it. This mental simplicity removes unnecessary distractions and allows your attention to focus on what truly matters. In that silence, character is built. Character is not formed when everything is easy. It is formed when you hold a goal without applause, without recognition, and without visible guarantees. That is the real test of personal discipline. Holding a goal in silence requires self-control, focus, and emotional maturity. It means resisting the urge to talk, to prove yourself, and to seek validation too early. That resistance strengthens your mind more than any external motivation ever could. I have learned that goals do not need spectators. They do not need comments, opinions, or early applause. They need consistent, daily, silent action. That action is what turns an intention into a real result. When you adopt the habit of quiet work, something changes inside you. You become more stable, more focused, and more committed to yourself. From that place, Progress stops being a possibility and becomes a natural outcome. When you protect your plans, something powerful happens. I have seen this many times in people who decided to stop talking and start executing with discipline. The moment your goals stop being a topic of conversation, your mind is freed from the need to explain or defend them. Your focus becomes sharper because it is no longer divided between what you want to do and what others think. Your thoughts begin to align in one direction. Clarity increases. Decisions become simpler, stronger, and more effective. Your organization also improves naturally. When you work in silence, you plan better, manage better, and prioritize with greater precision. You stop acting to impress and start acting to progress, and that completely changes the quality of your work. At the same time, your personal standards rise. You can no longer hide behind words or promises, only results exist. That inner responsibility pushes you to give your best every day, even when you do not feel motivated. There comes a point when you no longer feel the need to justify why you work so hard. You do not explain, you do not convince, you do not defend, you simply work. And that mental simplicity returns a massive amount of energy to you. This quiet habit builds deep self-confidence, not confidence based on opinions, but confidence based on internal evidence that you do what you say you will do. That is the strongest form of confidence that exists. True self-security is not built by talking about what you will do, but by proving privately that you are capable of doing it. Each day of silent work reinforces that identity. When you protect your plans, you also protect your self-worth, your focus, and your future. From that place, growth no longer depends on external motivation. It becomes the natural result of daily discipline. I have seen many people lose motivation because they talk too much. Valuable ideas weakened not because they lacked potential, but because they were shared with the wrong people. One careless opinion was enough to kill momentum that was just beginning to grow. They shared their vision with someone who did not understand it. And when a vision is fragile, it needs care, not judgment. Those people did not mean harm. They spoke from their own fears, limits, and experiences, and that was enough to plant doubt. Early criticism is especially damaging. It arrives before structure exists, before results appear, and it settles in the mind as a voice that questions every step. One external doubt can quickly become an internal barrier if it is not protected in time. That is why I always say, treat your plans as something sacred, not because they are perfect or guaranteed, but because they are yours. They represent your desire to grow, to move forward, and to create something better for your life. And everything sacred requires care and respect. There is no true success without a period of silence. Every meaningful achievement passes through an invisible stage where no one applauds and no one understands. That time is not empty. It is preparation. It is where the real foundation of progress is built. There is also no real progress without the ability to stay silent when you most want to speak. Resisting that impulse strengthens your character, teaches you self-trust, and helps you hold your vision without depending on approval. When you protect your energy, your life begins to move in the right direction. Your decisions become clearer, your focus stronger, and your discipline more consistent. You stop trying to explain who you are or what you want. At that point, you no longer seek external validation because your internal commitment is enough. You know what you are building even if no one else sees it yet. And that quiet certainty is one of the greatest sources of personal power that exists. Now, I want to address something even deeper. True strength is not about having no weaknesses. It is about knowing how to manage them wisely. We all experience doubt, fear, and insecurity. That does not make us weak or incapable. Emotional weaknesses are not the problem. Recognizing them is part of growth. The problem appears when they are shared carelessly without asking whether the other person has the maturity, intention, and capacity to respect them. The real danger is sharing them with the wrong person. When you reveal fears or insecurities to someone who is not a safe space, you lose control of your emotional world. You give away sensitive information that can be misunderstood or misused. Each careless exposure hands over power. Power over your emotional stability, your confidence, and sometimes your future decisions. Not everyone who listens wants to help. Some listen to judge, compare, or feed their own inner dialogue. Others minimize what you feel, and that can create deeper wounds than the original problem. Sharing without discernment often multiplies emotional weight. Instead of relief, confusion appears. Instead of clarity, doubt grows. Without realizing it, you end up carrying not only your problem, but also someone else's reaction. Emotional maturity means choosing carefully who gets access to your inner world. It is not about closing yourself off. It is about protecting yourself. It is not coldness, it is practical wisdom. When you learn to handle your emotions with discretion, you regain personal power. You think more clearly, act with greater stability, and strengthen your character. From that inner balance, growth becomes solid and sustainable. Emotional strength is not about exposing everything. It is about knowing what to protect. True maturity is not measured by how much you speak, but by your ability to remain silent when silence preserves your inner stability. Not everything you feel needs to become a conversation. When you work through your inner battles in silence, you overcome them. In that private space, reflection develops, self-understanding grows, and conscious decisions are made. That is where the mind becomes organized and emotions stop controlling behavior. I have observed that people who face their challenges internally develop deep resilience. They do not depend on external approval to stay emotionally strong. They learn to trust their own judgment and grow from within. When those same battles are shared without discernment, they multiply. External opinions, judgments, and interpretations add weight to the original conflict and make it heavier than it was at the start. Not everyone needs to know your deepest wounds. Not because you must hide, but because those wounds are part of a personal process that requires care. Exposing them without caution is like leaving an open wound in an unclean environment. Whoever knows exactly where you hurt knows exactly how to hurt you. Many people learn this too late. Not everyone acts with bad intentions, but even careless words can cause damage. Protecting your emotional world is a form of practical intelligence. Choosing what to share, with whom, and at what moment strengthens character and preserves inner peace. When you master emotional discipline, you become more stable, more clear, and stronger. You stop reacting impulsively and stop exposing yourself unnecessarily. From that quiet strength, personal growth becomes inevitable. That is why emotional discipline matters so much. People who achieve extraordinary results are not those who feel less, but those who manage what they feel better. Emotional discipline is the decision not to let a temporary emotion control an entire life. This is not repression, it is direction. Repressed emotions accumulate. Directed emotions become useful energy. When you channel what you feel into productive action, inner impulse turns into real progress. True self-control begins when you organize your inner world without seeking approval. The moment you stop looking for external validation, you recover emotional independence. You no longer act to please. You act to move forward. I have seen many people lose clarity because they handed their emotional stability to other people's opinions. When you let others define how you should feel, you also give them control over your decisions. Freedom begins when that dependence ends. Self-understanding is the foundation of personal power. Knowing yourself allows you to anticipate reactions, recognize patterns, and correct them before they become destructive habits. Inner knowledge always comes before external mastery. When you understand yourself, you stop fighting yourself. You learn to accept emotions without being ruled by them. This conscious acceptance reduces inner conflict and frees a huge amount of mental energy. An organized mind creates an organized life. When your inner world is balanced, your decisions become firmer, your communication clearer, and your presence more confident. From emotional discipline, everything begins to align. You act calmly under pressure, stay focused in chaos, and move forward consistently. That is real inner strength, and it is available to anyone willing to develop it. The same applies to achievements. Many advances weaken when they are exposed too early. Financial, professional, and personal results do not need validation to be real. They need time, care, and focus to solidify. Your progress is not for display, it is for protection. Every achievement is a seed still growing. Expose it too early and outside influences may damage its development. Success needs privacy. Real progress grows in quiet spaces, away from constant comparison. When you remain silent about your achievements, you preserve the energy that created them in the first place. Prosperity requires discretion, not secrecy. Valuable things need protection. Keeping a low profile reduces pressure and preserves clarity to keep moving forward. Announcing results attracts comparison, expectations, and unnecessary pressure. Many people lose momentum not because they lack ability, but because they carry opinions they never asked for. Focus weakens when you try to satisfy outside eyes. Real success is managed in private. It does not need applause, it needs continuity. Progress is not measured by what others celebrate, but by what you can sustain over time. When you stop explaining, you start advancing with clarity. Every unnecessary word consumes energy that could be used for action. Strategic silence simplifies decisions and strengthens discipline. Your life is not a performance. It is a construction. Strong structures are built away from noise with patience, consistency, and direction. This is how lasting success is created. Success that does not depend on opinion and stands over time. Your life changes when you realize you do not have to talk about it for it to exist. The most powerful progress happens away from attention. Success is built in silence. It is born in private decisions, daily habits no one applauds, and commitments only you know. That invisible work builds character and creates foundations that do not depend on others. True confidence does not come from what you say, but from what you prove through consistency. And success is also enjoyed in silence. When you no longer need to prove anything, you can truly enjoy what you have built. Inner peace is one of the greatest rewards of disciplined, quiet work. When the time comes, results will speak for you. No explanations needed. Facts carry a power no words can match. They always arrive when the process has been respected. The less you explain, the more you move forward. The more disciplined you become, the farther you go. Greatness does not need noise. It needs focus, consistency, and respect for your own process.